All right, we made it. This is part 4, the final part in our Jungian shadow boxing mini-series with STEVE Ernenwein from the Dreams That Shape Us podcast. This final installment gets a little heavy, as dreamwork is wont to do. You know, you can't make an omelet without breaking a couple fingers when it comes to confronting your own human psyche sometimes. But there's a trigger warning in the description. So, maybe check that out if you feel like you might need to. And I won't be offended if you dip out. And if you stick around, I'll see you on the other side of the episode. And we will laugh and smile and high five again. And it'll all be okay. Anyway, here's part 4.
No, I lay down to sleep. I dreamt I had a soul to keep, and if I die, I fly away, or I dream to go.
But I didn't start the dream journal until I was 19, and I kind of wish that I had a dream journal through high school, because I'd be so curious to see like what was really coming up. Be probably pretty cringy at times. But
I think that was the last time I was like good about it. Like I remember in high school keeping a pretty dream journal pretty religiously, and at the time I remember feeling like it helped me with my memory in general. Like I had better memory for everything, practicing remembering my dreams. But ironically, I feel like I don't remember as many dreams from that time period as I do before or after it. And I haven't been as good since about it. Although now I kind of blame the podcast. I feel like this is the dream journal. And it's even more in depth because I can go back and remember what I said and thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
I like those years. Like I remember dreaming really vividly when I was like a kid, like elementary school kid. And then there was a shift, and there's a good decade, like all through my teen years, where like, I mean, I'm sure I had dreams, but I just like would almost never remember them. And I kind of thought of it myself as like someone that did not dream,
Mm-hmm.
And then they came back after a while, but there was like a long period where I just didn't have them. I've still never had a flying dream. I'm like jealous of flying dreams. I wish I could give that a go.
Did that period of time coincide with your like with weed usage and all?
No. So I've told this story before, but like I was like a prolific lucid dreamer as a kid, and I would lucid dream like almost every night. Like and I had it down to a science, and I was always lucid dreaming. And then I had kind of a goofy, in retrospect, dream, but at the time, as I experienced it, it felt intense. But I had some kind of goofy dream where it was like a cross between like World War I trench warfare and like a food fight. It was just like pies being launched over trenches and shit. And that somehow shifted into me running down a street and being chased by a mob led by a guy in a Napoleon outfit. And I had a technique when a dream got scary. I would like, because I was already like an anxious, like nobody look at me kid at the time. It was like I had to prove to myself that I knew I was dreaming to be able to like break a nightmare and take over in like a lucid dreaming fashion. And what worked for me is like to stop and be like, I'm dreaming, because like if I did that in real life, that would be mortifying, right? That would be like horrifying. So, and thankfully I never was like sitting in class and I was like, this doesn't feel right. I'm dreaming right now. Thankfully that didn't happen. But so I tried my trick to take over what was getting to be too scary of a dream and go lucid. And so I stopped. I hollered that I was dreaming at the crowd, at the like mob chasing me. And like they stopped and Napoleon laughed at me, and then they kept chasing me. And like that was so scary for me, because this like trick that I had relied on to get me out of scary dream situations like didn't work. It was so scary for me that it like woke me up and it really shook me up. And then from then on, for a long period of time, I didn't lucid dream anymore and I didn't remember my dreams anymore. And that lasted for years and years.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a good segue. Because I was also more prolific with lucid dreaming earlier on, mostly like in high school. But I didn't have the perspective on dreaming that I do now about its like potential as like a self-exploration tool. I just thought dreams were super neat because I'd had very cool, vivid, exciting dreams, and even nightmares were like kind of fun and if you enjoy a horror movie kind of way. So I was kind of unintentional about it. Like I just like to play around in the world. Like it doesn't sound like I got as, or I don't think I got as skilled at it as it sounds like Victor did. But there were certain things I could do. Like I could choose what environment to put myself in before going to sleep. I guess this is sort of like dream incubation. Like I in order to fall asleep, I would lay there and really picture every detail of an environment, like go around. Like I remember one time I did it with a soccer field at night. I just went up and down every line of the field in my dream and across the bleachers and the fence beyond them. And I would eventually fall asleep picturing these things. And then I would have a dream on that soccer field. But again, it wasn't like intentional to like learn anything or it was just for like funsies. And Olivia alluded to something before our conversation here from listening to your podcast. She said you've touched on before, like the potential like pitfalls of lucid dreaming, and I'm just curious what that could be. Do you think that could come from kind of laissez-faire, kind of like unintentional dream work, or what do you think are some things to like be careful of?
If I'm thinking of the episode that she might be referring to, we interviewed a man named Ryan Hurd, who's a brilliant guy. And one of the things that he said in there, I had always kind of viewed the lucid dream as like a safe space that nothing could go wrong in, that you kind of have unconditional safety in there. But something he said to me during that interview really shook me and like really made me go, I suppose that is true. He said that if a lucid dream has the power to heal, then it also has the power to harm. And if you, I guess the notion was that if you become lucid and you venture into the dream looking for trouble. So an example of potentially looking for trouble that I have was, I had a lucid dream one time where I shouted out to the dream, "Show me my shadow." That's
pretty bold.
Pretty bold. A lot of naivety surrounding that statement and not truly considering what would potentially happen if I did that. And what did happen was, I don't think it necessarily harmed me, but it was really intense. It was like full on Armageddon in the dream. Like all these people showed up and everyone was fist fighting. And I was, right when I became lucid, I was with Erica, my partner, and in the midst of all the chaos going on, she gets pulled away from me in this mob, and I can't get to her, and I'm struggling to know what to do. And usually in a lucid dream, if you can find grounding and you give love to this space or to your characters, oftentimes there's like this transformational thing that happens. But in this particular dream, none of those tricks were working, and I was terrified, and there was so much chaos that in watching her get carried away and me not being able to do anything in the moment was so dramatic and emotional. And I was trying to fly and I couldn't get up off the ground, and it was, I woke up feeling so defeated. And so that wasn't like, that was relatively harmless, asking for my shadow to show up. What he's kind of getting at is like really trying to go in and like dig up traumas, dig up old wounds, dig up core wounds, If you're just stumbling into lucid dreams with no preparation, with no real idea of what you're asking for, opening that kind of material up, not being ready for it can potentially, I haven't really heard any documented cases about this, but could potentially, I don't know, reopen things for you in a way that you're not ready for, and could potentially set you back a little bit. Or like your dream, Victor, not that there was any harm done, but to think that the confrontation that you tried to meet in that dream, and then it kind of bulldozed over you for that to have jarred you in a way that took your dreaming life offline for however long. That could be like a way that you could see harm is kind of a strong word in some of these situations. But I mean, to have that kind of dream loss for that long, I mean, maybe harm is the only appropriate word for that.
It's interesting.
Maybe you didn't have any emotional distress per se, but for that to have just, closed the doors on it, seems pretty intense.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It was a mob for both of you. I wonder if that was Victor's shadow as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's.
So, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're having regular little lucid dreams and you're just trying to impress your dream characters with your magical powers, I mean, there's very little harm that can come of that kind of stuff. I don't think that's a very fulfilling way of utilizing your lucid dreaming. If you're trying to experience expanded states of consciousness, maybe that's another way that harm could come into it. But then maybe you go too far. I don't have any documented that I've come across of experiences of that, of people losing their shit from trying to reach nirvana-like highs in a lucid dream. I've had very ecstatic experiences in lucid dreams, and I was just fine coming out of it. And if anything, I was better for it. So yeah, to me, the biggest harm is in using lucid dreams in a way that doesn't mean anything. That you're actually like just utilizing lucid dreams to bolster your ego, I think is its own form of harm, because it's imploding your ego in a way that you think you're special in some way that might not be beneficial for your life. I don't know. That was kind of the way it was for me early on. I had a really hard kind of fall from grace, and that led to like a very 2 to 3 year drought in lucid dreaming for me. And I was like really into it at the time. That like really kind of shaped up how I was utilizing that space. It really matured me. It forced me to like recognize like, what are you using this space for? Like, one of the things that I was sold on early on in my lucid dreaming life was that you could have sex with anybody. This is like a thing that you read all over the place with like marketing shit surrounding lucid dreaming, is like, you can do whatever you want, you can create anything you can believe, and you can have sex with anyone you want. Like those are kind of like the marketing wet dream hit points. But you come to find out that there's a certain level of autonomy that your dream characters carry, and sometimes your dream characters seem to have a lot of autonomy. And if you go into a lucid dreaming, think that anybody is fair game, and they just should be there for your pleasure. Like, I had one instance, this is the most hard thing to say, but sometimes like in a lucid dream, like you're kind of not yourself. Like your desires are amplified, your emotions are amplified, your sensations are amplified, and they can get the best of you sometimes. And this one lucid dream I had, I saw this beautiful woman, and I went up to her, and I must have like approached her in a very like, you're my property kind of way, because she kind of instantly was like, what the fuck, dude? And she was not about it, and she tried to run away from me, and I ran after her, and I think I might have even tackled her to the ground. And I stopped myself and was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I woke up and was just like so horrified. Like, oh, so this is how you would act if like there were no consequences. And like, it was just like so jarring to wake up out of that and to like be sober now, to not be all like hopped up on desires that are amplified and all that kind of stuff. And to be like, no, like, this isn't how we're utilizing lucid dreams. Like, this isn't your little fucking playground to like act out the shittiest like form that you could take. Like, like, this isn't, to me, I get kind of frustrated with new lucid dreamers because they think it is their playground and that it is free reign to be as obnoxious and shitty as you can be. And I think if you're going to be true to being a lucid dreamer, I think at some point you have to go through the initiation of the dream, slapping back and being like, no, like, this was cute for a few minutes here, but if you want to go deeper, like, here's your first confrontation. And usually the shadow shows up. Usually in a lucid dream, when you start acting up, the dream turns on you, kind of like Inception made famous. Like, you start acting a little bit out of line, bringing too much attention to yourself, the dream turns on you. And it's so true. Because this isn't your playground. This isn't your free for all. This is a sacred space that you're being given and granted a very conscious experience of. And there is a maturation that has to happen if you are going to go deeper than just the surface bullshit level of lucid dreaming. So I don't know how I just got off on that tangent, but it's something that I'm pretty passionate about surrounding lucid dreaming, that there's these little initiations that happen all the time. And to credit Ryan Hurd once again, one of the most brilliant things that he said in there is that something that lucid dreamers don't want to hear is that if you're going to be in a lucid dream, then you're going to have to face conflict. Like, there's no way around it. Like, the dream will probably humor you for a few minutes. Yeah, you want to do something stupid or something ridiculous to impress your dream characters, that you got these cool powers or whatever the hell you want to do. You want to go flying around. But then something happens that puts a thorn in all that, and either the dream turns on you or you do run into a conflict of some sort. That, what do you do in that moment? How do you confront? How do you meet the confrontation? What do you do when the dream decides that it's had enough? And yeah, do you have the ability to learn what it's trying to teach you in that moment? So yeah, I don't know.
The ethic.
If you got anything to ask about that.
The ethics of lucid dreaming is I can see why that would be like an overlooked question. Because theoretically, if there's no one there but you, there's no right or wrong. But if you're confronted with the shadow and you're not actually dealing with it or working on it, you could be feeding it.
Mm-hmm. And just like the integrity of your own soul, like, who do you want to be? Like, it kind of holds up a mirror to you and is like, who are you? How are you going to act? What, to me, there's often so many like big time character development moments in lucid dreams, because it can tailor experiences that can really call something out of you. And this again is kind of an initiatory like act on the part of the dream, where it's like, what are you going to do in this situation? Like, who are you and what capacity do you have to meet this confrontation? Where are you at right now in your capacity to meet this kind of confrontation? And we fail these moments all the time, but there's beautiful growth and beautiful lessons to be learned in that. So to me, lucid dreaming gets painted like this beautiful walk in the park where like you can live out your wildest fantasies, but my experience has just been proven time and time again that this is a training ground and that it's not just a free-for-all. Like you're here to learn something. You're here to be taken to the next level if that's where you want to go. If you're sincere in your desire to want to move deeper into yourself through lucid dreaming, which a lot of people say is what they're all about, then how do you face the confrontation of your own soul? How do you meet that moment, and who do you become as a result of it? I think some of the bigger questions that those kind of moments really seek to call out of you. And you fail them quite often, and then at times you finally learn the lesson, and you have these very beautiful moments where you get celebrated and you kind of are upgraded in a way. And then sometimes you have droughts in lucid dreaming, which force you to reconsider your relationship to that whole space and that whole zone and what it means to you and why it's important to you. And sometimes droughts are some of the biggest like teachers as far as lucid dreaming is concerned, and what it means to you and why is it important to you. But yeah, so I don't know if that was a big buzzkill, but
No,
me and him had such a good time talking about it, being like, nobody wants to hear this about lucid dreaming, but this is, if you're gonna take it seriously, like this is really what it's all about.
yeah, no, that was my question. That's about the dark side of lucid dreaming or the dangers of it. I didn't expect the answer to be, if Napoleon kills you in a dream, he kills you in real life.
Wait, is that what happened? Did I die for real and this is the lucid dream?
No, you barely got away.
All right.
Oh wow. He took something, killed something in you.
Yeah. Man, if I ever see that Napoleon again, though, I'm done dreaming for good. I'm out.
Podcast canceled.
Something I did want to say about your guys' podcast, when you guys talk about your recurrent themes exhaustingly continuing to arise, part of me, like, this is probably more humorous than true, but thinking that it's because of the podcast, it's all, the fault lies in the podcast. That your dreams are like, oh, these guys are going to do a podcast, and maybe I'll slow cook the shit out of all of them. And maybe after a certain amount of time, like the three of them will just be like, oh my God, I finally figured out how to get around this issue. And then like have several years worth of documentation of how you got there to then be like, this is how dreams shape us. It just like brought our two podcasts.
Then we'll be ready to come on your show.
That's right. This is the training ground for dreams shaping you. We haven't been shaped yet.
Or just an example of how it works. Yeah. Well, maybe it's building you up to have that one big dream that finally pops a hole in it all, and you're like, oh my God.
I gotta quit my job. Move to Tibet.
Gotta hitchhike to Long Beach. Sell all my shit.
I'm a surfer now. That last dream did it. I'm a new man.
I still think about the redneck Willy Wonka character quite often.
Oh, do you?
I just thought that was so hilarious.
Try not to think about it at all.
Oh man.
And that's why we keep dreaming about the same stuff. I feel like that's bit.
Yeah, if we only think about it when we're on the podcast, we're never going to do any self-work. We don't actually have to work on anything. It's just discuss the same problem over and over again for an hour, 2 hours.
I feel like
that's funny.
I feel like that's been the theme of this conversation with you, Steve, is how do we level up our podcast?
Oh man.
How do we all...
I think you guys' podcast is amazing, dude. To think, we were trying to think of some ways to like add episodes to the month, because the level of production that we do on our one episode a month is already enough for me to care about.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, like composing all the music for it is what takes me the longest. Yeah, I was like, oh man, maybe like to stay in the theme of like dreams that shape us, maybe we could kind of show how our dreams are currently trying to shape us in the moment, kind of like what you guys are doing. But then I was like, oh God. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, those guys are brave, man, because fuck, that feels dicey. Feels pretty dicey.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've been trying to make too many connections and then like after the episode air, be like, God, that's like that is not at all like how I'm feeling about that dream right now anymore. Be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think what we figured out is if it's your dream, just be really defensive.
Mm-hmm.
That's the secret. Be really guarded. Be really defensive.
And
lash
demand
out.
that things be cut from the episode wholesale afterward.
Yeah, that's kind of the best way to do it. We really got it nailed down.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
funny.
luckily we've gotten better at identifying that stuff as it comes up or shortly before it comes up, because we used to do this thing pretty often where we would start to get into some dicey waters, and one of us would, whoever was, in the hot seat, would have to be like, okay, note for the editor, we're off air now. And we would talk about the thing we didn't want to talk about on air and how to get back into it once the next edit point was brought us back on air. And that used to be like a regular occurrence, and we're pretty good about not having to do that these days.
Yeah. I feel like partly because like I think we have gotten more open about stuff throughout the course of doing it. Like I do feel like we've all become more vulnerable in some ways and like a little bit more comfortable with having stuff go out. Like, I don't know. It's like the first couple times you talk about like your embarrassing shit, it's like it really gets you, and then it gets a little, I don't know, I do feel like it gets a little bit easier as you do it.
Definitely.
I just have to pretend that absolutely no one else is listening. And
yeah, and for me, it's like part of it is doing it or having done it enough times, just dreamwork itself, or stumbling through enough interpretations. I can kind of, to some degree, before we do an episode, realize that like I don't know what this dream is about that I'm bringing to the table, but I feel like it might lead to this conversation, so I'm going to be prepared to talk about that and not being blindsided. The times that I felt the most vulnerable and inarticulate, and the times that I've wanted things cut from episodes, is because I was totally not prepared to talk about that thing. It's not that I refuse to have people hear it. It's just I want to be ready to know how to talk about them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the trickiest thing about our podcast is we all recognize that like stumbling upon the thing you weren't expecting and it giving you like kind of like a new perspective is the coolest thing that can happen on our podcast. And so we all want everyone else to do it.
Right.
And we don't ever want to have to do it. We're just hoping we hit on the thing, and it's like, okay, please let us, please keep it in. Don't make us cut this thing we finally hit on.
That's funny. Yeah, that's the thing that I found like so wild about the men's group that I started being a part of last year. Like, was I've been doing this work and doing shadow work solo for so long that when I talk to people about it, like I'm telling them like the understood, very polished version of like what happened. And when I got into the men's workspace, I was like things were happening. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm actually having to do this work with other people in real time, and it's messy as shit. And like, wow, this is way more edgy than like I thought I was like comfortable doing this kind of work, but now having to actually do it in relationship with other people is so much more edgy, and it really freaked me out at first, and it was so hard to like want to be there to do that. But now I'm like so grateful. I think you do like, it does get easier, and you gain muscle in some weird vulnerable way that, yeah, I mean, especially with you three, you guys know each other so well. You're doing this every week, or you had been doing it every week. I mean, you just end up feeling more comfortable, I think, going there with each other. And it's easy to like forget that this is actually going to be published. I think in the moment while you're doing it.
You try to forget that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I have to get to that place.
Until you start sweating, and then you're like, oh shit. Like, there's a few moments tonight where I was like, God, I hope I'm sounding intelligent, because what am I even talking about? And I'm like, I'm not the one in control of what gets edited. Like, fuck.
Yeah, Zach, if our podcast ever really takes off, don't tell me, because I don't need to know. Just let me continue to believe that like 5 people are listening, and I'll be able to continue to dump my emotional problems on everybody.
Yeah, if we ever do like live podcasts in front of a sold out auditorium, we'll have you face the
front of a crowd.
You face the curtain.
Yeah,
How
there
many
you go.
people are out there?
Our stage show would be like one of us is crying, one of us is yelling.
Oh shit, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, damn, dude.
Yeah, thanks for staying up late with us, man. I know it's
Yeah, thank you for doing this. It's been great.
Yeah, dude, it's been awesome. I'm pretty baffled at all the different areas we went.
Yeah.
this should cover us for a good chunk of time. So
You think you can get an episode or two out of that, Zach?
yeah,
I think you got that covered. That's good. All right. I think we all ought to go do some dreaming.
hell yeah.
Yeah, man. I know. It's the longest night of the year coming up.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, happy
That's
equinox, everybody.
Hey.
Solstice. The equinox.
Yeah, well,
That's the other one in the summer, the equinox.
No, those are in the fall and the spring.
Oh,
So you got the summer and winter solstices.
yeah. I'm really bad at this witch shit.
We'll get better.
I'm new to warlocking.
Yeah, that's so Scorpio of you. No, I don't know.
It's so scorpionic.
It's very unscorpionic.
Scorpionic.
Very-
There you go.
You did it. You made it. Thank you for sticking with us through this, 8-week episode. This 4-part singular episode that we stretched for 8 weeks. I'm sure Victor and Olivia were very grateful for the time away from having to deal with, unraveling their psyches in front of a microphone while they bring a brand new psyche into this world. So, thank you for sticking with us through this time period. And I'm sure we'll be back to the regular show, to a new episode soon. And we'll get to hear all about what the dreams of a new set of parents are like. So can't wait for that. I can't wait to meet that baby. And as we always say, he who stands on toilet is high on pot. Mwah. Kisses. Eat you a tiger.